Hello, everyone. This is the podcast Diritto al Digitale. I'm Giulio Coraggio, location head of the Italian Intellectual Property and Technology Department at the law firm DLA Piper. I'm here with my colleague, Tommaso Ricci, and with our special guest, Giorgia Vulcano. Giorgia Vulcano is a senior manager at ABI, one of the leading companies in the food and beverages field in the world, and she specialized in artificial intelligence, data protection, and cybersecurity. Giorgia, welcome here, and thanks for accepting our invitation. We said we took 2 years to arrange this podcast, but we made it.
Thank you, Giulio and Tommaso. I'm really thrilled to be part of this conversation, and I really look forward to exploring some new ideas and topics with you today.
Absolutely. So, Giorgia, we met when a few years ago when you were in another company in this field. In the meantime, the artificial intelligence has become the buzzword and the field in which everyone has been specializing, but your expertise originates from the privacy stream, and that's why I would ask you, what is the intersection between artificial intelligence and privacy governance in such a global multinational company as yours, and what are the legal challenges that can arise in connection to that?
Giulio, that's such a timely question. I was just reading recently this report released by the IPP. It's called the Organizational Digital Governance Report. And actually, amongst its findings, they were sharing that over 80% of privacy teams are gaining responsibilities that extend beyond privacy. And within that sample, 55% was acquiring more skills and scope in the AI governance field. So clearly, we're seeing that there is a trend and a natural evolution of the role of privacy professionals. There's definitely, a very important interplay between AI and privacy governance. And that's also really majorly due to the reliance around data uses, much of which sometimes is personal data. And so this, of course, raises concerns, for example, in terms of data minimization, purpose limitation, and transparencies, which are core principles in data protection laws, but also a main source of tension with AI. And so there are a couple of challenges that I find in this interplay. The first one is that, we really have that challenge that we need to overcome of ensuring that AI models do not inadvertently process data in ways that could violate individuals' rights or also cross-jurisdiction standards, because, of course, also when you're operating globally, you also have different standards that you need to be complying with. Another issue that I see is also really finding that balance, striking that balance between innovation, the race for innovation, the speed that this comes at, and also needing to comply with relevant regulatory requirements. And also there is, still a lot of uncertainty on how this will play out, how the enforcement will look like, and definitely, a huge challenge for us professionals. So I really think that, within this interplay, it becomes so important to focus on forward-facing data practices where we can anticipate as much as possible what could be future challenges, but also opportunities and requirements, and really ensure that at all times we prioritize the privacy and the transparency of our stakeholders. And, in that sense, I feel that, this interplay, these tensions between AI and privacy governance can also become an opportunity for us to really build a more comprehensive governance that integrates privacy by design principles.
Yeah, no, indeed. I can tell you that the take from many of our clients is that they perceive that it's privacy and AI governance are close, but might be distant, because in order to understand the AI governance, you need to have some technical skills that normally go beyond what privacy compliance is. And so then you have technical experts that normally are in the IT department that should become part of the privacy team. And so do you see that there would be an AI compliance department at some point, or it's going to be many years ahead of us?
No, actually, Giulio, I see that, some companies or some entities are already adopting that approach of having, dedicated professionals to the AI era. But what you're saying is absolutely critical, right? The need for us to upskill to ensure that we have, on one side, as lawyers, the technical knowledge to understand the dynamics of AI and also where the risks actually lie, but also for the technical teams to better understand what are the compliance requirements, because of course, that becomes relevant for them also to understand how to design and deploy a specific AI tool to ensure that, it actually complies with those standards. And again, it also even goes beyond technical teams. It really touches on every single function, because including, business owners or people that are working specifically in marketing or in HR, they need to know what these uses should be, like what is prohibited, what's high risk, what comes with that, right? Because of course, also there's a level of compliance that needs to be fulfilled. So I believe that generally as professionals, AI really forces us to upscale and expand that scope.
Which I completely agree, Giorgia. And also you mentioned the complexity of having to deal with this issue at a global scale. We have seen that the GDPR acted as a role model and defined a standard to which all the other countries kind of tended towards. We may expect the same happening for the AI Act, at least that there can be a Brussels effect. I wonder whether this extensive focus that there is actually in the regulation on ethics and on human rights, is this actually a manageable issue for a global organization which has to deal with different concepts of what is considerable as an ethically correct practice, or what is considered a bias. For example, a bias in a specific region of our world can be seen as a different way of discriminating people compared to other regions in the world.
Tommaso, it's a great question, and it also kind of like uncovers another point, which is, with AI, the ethical question is raised at all times. And I think that is so relevant, because it means also that as a community and as a society, we are much more aware of these issues, right? And we're getting prepared for them and trying to anticipate these unintended consequences as much as we can. Because of course, there are certain known ethical concerns in AI that span from bias and discrimination to more environmental and social impacts, right? That can go from disinformation to water and energy consumption. But I really feel that unlike previous innovations, there's much more focus, and there's at least an open debate in the global agenda around the ethical use of AI and responsible innovation. I believe that, technology like AI is not static. It's very, very dynamic. And so are also the regulatory priorities that we're seeing in AI, its uses and its enforcement. So I think this really calls for also a very dynamic approach from professionals like ourselves, where we need to develop a common language, really grounded also on consensus around what should that AI use policy look like moving forward, ensuring that there is consistency and also alignment between these different functions, these different professionals working on AI. Ethical governance goes beyond the legal aspect, right? It goes beyond compliance. It's really about, prioritizing the creation also of human-centric solutions, which I feel it's also a common denominator across frameworks and regulations around AI, and also on the concept of accountability. I think this has also been reinforced very much from regulation, from non-binding frameworks, because there's really an understanding that this accountability should be built throughout the whole life cycle of AI and also throughout the whole supply chain. So again, these are concepts that maybe for us privacy professionals, they're not too new, but I find it very interesting how they're also being reiterated and carried on in AI.
Yeah, but a kind of provocative question, Giorgia. Do you think that compliance with ethical principles is more a kind of a marketing claim for companies, or with the hype of AI, is really becoming a compliance topic? Because everyone has been talking about ethics, and we know that some of the large tech companies have been involved in kind of scandals where they were launching some products. There were some pushback from the head of ethics, and then these people sometimes were even dismissed.
Look, I feel that, compared also to before, we have been seeing uses of AI tools being blocked also for not complying with specific requirements. And, on one side, there are the regulatory requirements, but on the other hand, there are also the expectations of end users and of stakeholders. So for me, that's also what will be driving that demand and that market, right? I believe that as we have more and more options on the market, users also have more choice, right? And they will ultimately, particularly with AI, opt for those products or services that inspire them trust, where they feel that, maybe the ethical approach to that specific use, it's not just a marketing claim, but it's a serious one that they can rely on. So I like your provocation, and I think that's also, a current well-debated issue. But I think that also there are a lot of balances and controls behind it that are helping us really to build a more responsible innovation.
Yeah. Giorgia, you mentioned that professionals working into the field where we are working and we have been working for these years are in a better position. And while we were talking, I remember that we have performed an extensive number of legitimate interest assessment and data protection impact assessment. And now we have these fundamental rights impact assessment. And there is always, the same recurring having the need of balancing different rights and taking the point of view of the stakeholders who are engaged and ultimately also the data subjects who are involved. So this, I think, has been brought also in this new regulation. And speaking about your role as a leader of a legal team, do you foresee that AI is becoming more a protagonist of our activities? We have been reading the newspapers, and they have been claiming that AI will replace lawyers sooner or later, and it has passed the the bar exam. So there are a huge number of AI applications into the legal field. We ourselves, as you know, I am both a lawyer and a coder, so what's my point of view on this. But I wonder what's the point of view of someone like you who is having to deal with complex regulations in different jurisdictions all the time.
Yeah, so I see 2 points in your question, Tommaso. One is around the assessment and compliance fatigue that these regulation trigger, right? And I think that we have a very important role in ensuring that we can also leverage existing governance so that the AI piece is also embedded and we're not creating, additional burdens that may be unnecessary, right? We should be able to also leverage, especially, for those of us who have been working already in privacy, already some of those assessments, processes, policies to ensure also that they can cover to the extent possible AI uses. But kind of going more into your question around the development also of our role as lawyers. I mean, AI has significantly altered also my role and even my approach to the law, particularly in terms of advising on the technology and on the regulatory risk. For me, and maybe that's a little bit what we were saying at the beginning, also with Giulio, right? It's really critical for us lawyers to upskill ourselves so that we can understand the technology from many different points of views, definitely from a regulatory standpoint, because again, there is so much to comply with, and that's becoming so and so rich. I think at least what's reassuring is that we're seeing a certain pattern across regulations in terms specifically of guiding principles. But of course, we need to acquire that technical knowledge. I think it's not enough for us to just know the law. We need to be able to really also govern a little bit more the technology, not necessarily become experts, because of course that's also it might be also sometimes very complex, but at least be able to communicate with our counterparts that are working within those fields. But I think it's also going to be very important to really build these cross-functional type of collaborations. And maybe you know me also you've been knowing me for some time, but I always been talking about cross-functional collaboration. But I feel that with AI, it's really forcing us to put that in practice, and I'm seeing it.
It's necessary. If you don't do it, it's impossible.
Exactly. And so it's a blocker. It's no longer an option, right? But I think it's really critical for us to have that cross-functional collaboration, particularly to foster also a culture of innovation that is grounded on legal and ethical principles. And I feel that, looking forward, right, the AI will transform our legal function. We know that that's already happening, and it will happen even further by, even automating certain tasks such as, document review, contract drafting, even some compliance checks, which, again, today they take up a lot of our time. And I believe that, with this level of automation, not only they will free us up a little bit more to focus also more maybe on strategic decisions and risk mitigation in general, but they may make also legal services more accessible and of quality, which I think it's also a very important point, especially if we're talking about inclusion. So I feel that, we'll kind of like shift from being purely legal advisors to become really strategic partners.
Giorgia, last question, always connected to what you just said. Do you think we will have a sort of iPhone moment in the legal practice because of this change in the way legal counsels need to operate? You both are very young, but when I started legal profession, no one had an iPhone, and we had a BlackBerry. And when the iPhone came out, the general comment was, "I'm never going to use an iPhone because there are no plastic digits. It's all digital, and I'm never going to do that." And we know what happened then. So do you think that there will be a period where people will be forced to innovate, and those that don't innovate will be kind of left behind, and they will need to give up?
Well, I mean, that's definitely a very likely outcome. But look, I wanted to give you an example that's kind of like hit me that I heard some time ago regarding education. And, with ChatGPT kicking in, some schools took different approaches. There were schools that prohibited the use of ChatGPT altogether, and schools that embraced it. And they tasked their students with, asking them to prepare an essay with ChatGPT, bringing it to school. And then the real task there, the homework, was challenging what ChatGPT had said and why. So you really bringing also our creativity, our way of working and challenging things to a different level. And that's what calls my attention. That's what I find very interesting. So I think we are also responsible and owe to ourselves as professionals and to our clients to really upskill ourselves to really dominate the technology, exploit it in a way that makes our work better, but makes us also better professionals. So I'm not worrying so much about the technology necessarily replacing us. It will, it will replace us on different functions, but will also enable us to build new ones that I'm very excited to look up for.
Absolutely. I can only tell you that I approached the maths teacher on my children, and I said, I'm gonna lecture a lesson on generative AI because your students need to be able to use ChatGPT, because in their working experience they will not work as we did, but they will need to upskill to provide the service better than ChatGPT or any other generative AI that will be around when they start working.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, for our kids, it's going to be also very interesting because today we're still working with what is defined as narrow, weak AI. So there's a level of automation, but in terms of creativity, we're still not getting there yet. But for our kids, I think it's going to be fascinating. So we need to make sure that they have the right skills and tools to embrace that transformation.